All right. Hope you all are having a nice weekend. Doing a little video update. And so the contents for today's update are as follows. We're going to do Bitcoin on the high time frame. We're going to do Bitcoin on the low time frame. We're going to evaluate this cycle through the lens at which I'm looking at it and have been looking at it. We're going to look at the miners. We're going to look at Mara. We're going to look at Riot. We're going to look at Mara and Riot versus BTC because I get a lot of questions on why they're lagging, what my expectations are in terms of if and when they will catch up. We're going to look at MicroStrategy, and then we're going to call it a day. And so we're starting out today's video, first off, with my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. Don't take this as financial advice. These are just my views on the market, and no one knows what's going to happen. I have my strong convictions, and that is what I'm here to present, okay? So with that, I've got my Elliott wave cycle count up for Bitcoin on the weekly chart. And what I'm looking at is just glorious. I'm not going to mince words. This cycle is playing out beautifully. I've been tracking this structure since the lows were put in through this lens, okay, through this count that I have in front of you. And essentially what I'm seeking to do here is kind of take you through my thought process in terms of specifically what my expectation is moving forward from this point. And so the rationale behind why I believe we are in the final impulse, and again, just as a quick review, when I'm defining impulses, when you look at Elliott wave, for those that may not be familiar of it, think about it as like a piece of broccoli. An Elliott wave sought to describe cycles on high time frames, low time frames, major time frames, in terms of waves of emotion and price action that follows. And what I have here essentially is the entire cycle count from when I believe this cycle started early 2019 up to where we are now. And for those of you that have been following me, I've been contending, I'm not going to run through this in too much detail, but we had one major impulse, we had a 2 correction, 3 major impulse, and we had a expanded flat correction, which can happen where this B wave exceeds the previous high. And then we had a 4 correction. And what we're in right now is this cycle 5th wave, the final impulse, which has been playing out so far, And the tell for me in terms of this cycle, and for those of you that have been following me and have seen my previous videos, something that's happened in every previous cycle is at least these impulses within the cycle being confirmed by RSI, relative strength index. And the relative strength measures the velocity, the power behind the move. And with an asset that I contend is the most powerful from a volatility standpoint in all of traditional finance, whatever else you want to lump in there, just the most volatile asset on the long term to the upside. On the short term, expresses itself in frustration and fluctuations that most can't handle. And that's kind of what we're in right now in a positive way, right? In a positive way, we're in the fun part of that volatility. The short term is noise. Don't get distracted by what's going on in the short term. This volatility, in my opinion, is pure noise and is needed in order to express what follows it. Now, I digress. What I'm getting to is in each of the previous cycles, major impulses, the signature of each of these impulses has been relative strength index, and specifically getting this power, getting this RSI over 70 on a weekly time frame. And that is what I've got right here. 1, 2, And now we've got our third move into the overbought region. And that's good. That's what I want to see. That gave me confirmation early on in, when was it? November, that in fact, this was playing out as I had forecasted. And the key was to get into that 70 overbought and to stay in it. Okay, and to stay in it. And so I made a few adjustments to the count on the high time frame as well as the low time frame. We'll get to the low time frame on the next chart that I present. But for now, what am I trying to do with this exercise? Specifically with RSI, I want to look at each of these impulses, okay? 1, 3, and 5. And I want to look at specifically the power behind the movements within each of these specific impulses, okay? Let's start with impulse 1. And I'm talking primary impulse 1 here, okay? And so what we saw was, what we saw here was a movement, a rejection, a flat line prior to getting into overbought, okay? That marked this 1, 2 region. And the first impulse was smaller. I'll get to that in a minute. What did we see in impulse number 3? We saw this first movement, kind of rejection, and then move into overbought. And again, that happened in the 1 to 2 area on its way into 3. What are we seeing today? We're seeing very similar. Between 1 and 2, initiating 3, we had this little rejection, impulse rejection on RSI, and then it moved into overbought. And so specifically, I want to seek to explore what the RSI, as it gets into overbought, its behavior in this area and what that signified. As you'll notice, it didn't just get into overbought and just fly and come back down, and that was and it called it a day. Each time it got into overbought, it had its first move, and then it rejected down towards the 70. And the first impulse, it went under 70. Okay. Second, the third impulse, excuse me, had its first move, rejected, and just consolidated prior to taking its next leg up and out of it. What do we have going on here today? We have a rejection, consolidation, and we're still above overbought. So we're kind of in that area in between this area, as it relates to RSI. And let me just circle where those were. 3-4 on the first impulse, minor 3-4 on the third impulse. And what I've got labeled here now is minor 3-4 on this final impulse. Okay. So that's how I'm triangulating on where I believe we are from a count perspective within this major cycle. And so if that's the case, and we are at this 3-4 junction, and I believe we're completing this minor 4 correction, then what's to come is the most powerful part of this move. Okay. And why do I say that? Well, let's go back to this 4. What happened? It led to blow off 5 and the end of this first impulse. Okay, you following me? What happened here coming out of this 4? It led to 5 of the minor 3, and then 4 correction blow off. Literally the beginning of the end of the move. Are you guys following me here? The beginning of the end of the move. And so what I'm looking at here is this 4 marking the beginning of the end of the move, of the major move, of the cycle move. And so that's the lens at which I'm looking at this from, folks. And so now I'm going to move to the low time frame, and this is exciting. This is exciting. This is, to me, this is where we need to be the most bullish. This is where, within this impulse, that's where you need to be the most bullish. Within this impulse, this is where you need to be most bullish. And with this final impulse, that's where we need to be the most bullish. So again, as I hear on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, people wondering about local tops and how far are we going to fill this 39K gap and this and that. I don't care. I'm trying to do my best to map out the low time frame. I'm not going to get them all right. Like as you saw with the last one, I took a loss on that. That count, my interpretation of the low time frame movement over the last week was wrong. But I don't care. Okay, I don't care. I'm fully willing to take stabs and chances at trying to map out this volatility on a short time frame, because I know you appreciate it and I get the comments. So I'm going to keep doing it. But remember, I'm not going to always be right at that. I'm not that good. Nobody's that good. And I could be wrong on this as well. We have to take that into consideration as well. But I don't believe that I am. I do not believe that I am, folks. Okay. So now let's go to the low time frame. Low time frame count. And this is my updated count. I had thought that we were in some type of expanded flat and initiating our next impulse, but and that needed to happen really yesterday, today in a major way, and it didn't. So that leads me to believe my count was wrong. My low time frame count was wrong. This high time frame count that you're looking at is essentially what I just shared with you, just on a 4-hour chart at the segment of the market we are in right now. Okay. And so what it looks like we're working on is more of a triangle type correction, which are very common in 3-4 corrective waves. This major third lines up with what I just shared with you on the previous chart. And so coming out of a triangle type consolidation here, whether we take another stab back down, to flush out some longs or not, I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not going to try to guess that at this point, because my last guess was wrong, and I've relinquished the right until this next impulse reveals itself to do that. Okay, that's like me putting myself into a bit of a chart jail until I see this impulse come out. That's just how I'm going to roll. So where does this count stand? It just stands as absolutely beautiful, and the chart's telling me that there's some type of news catalyst that's coming. Could it be the ETF approval? I don't know. But the way that this is shaping up, in my opinion, has us making a move into the 50s really next week. Correction to 48. That there would be a lot of confluence with that 618 fib zone that everybody's looking at. And then a move year end, early January, breaching previous all-time high. And this lines up well with kind of the way I'm thinking about the market, right? Because a move to all-time high would have a lot of people claiming double tops. And I'm using not only what I'm seeing here, but the way I'm analyzing traditional financial markets. For those of you that also follow some of my other charts that I post, I don't always post about Bitcoin, but I'm hearing and seeing a lot of things about double tops and the traditional financial markets. I think the market, I could be wrong, I think the market's just going to blast past these previous all-time highs and what's the word? Invalidate that thesis very, very quickly. And so this would make sense to me as well. A major breach past previous all-time highs, and then a correction, substantial correction, really substantial correction back to maybe the high 50 range, at which wouldn't be shocked if we got, if it's ETF approval, if it's something else. The charts are just telling me there's a major catalyst. And if we were, and this is just speculation, folks, the way that I'm lining this price action up, if we were to take this trajectory This is just a possible speculative thought. We could be in the high 50s, and that's where you get a move into the low 100K, high 90K very quickly, to mark this third impulse. And so that's the way I'm approaching this. So for now, we'll keep moving. And I get, the whole what if you're wrong, right? Invalidation thesis. For right now, nothing has been invalidated on the high time frame. So I'm not going to explore that. Now, if we got a weekly close below, let's see, where was this impulse initiated? If we got a weekly close below 35 or something to that effect, then I could explore this entire macro count being invalidated and have to potentially look at other options. But until that happens, I don't need to do that. I do not need to do that, because we're not even close to being near that type of scenario. Okay, next, Mara. The second part of my analysis when it comes to not only Bitcoin, but the miners, and where I think we are in a Bitcoin cycle, is what the miners are doing. If we were in, if the market was setting up for a distribution where we were right now, the Mara chart wouldn't look like it looks right now, in my opinion. Okay, and what is it? How does it look to me? It looks better than it's looked since November of 2020. And that's prior to when it went from the 3s to $55 within 6 months. Okay. And the tell again on that for me is the RSI. Last week, Mara, as Bitcoin corrected, Mara broke into 70 overbought on an RSI. I mean, look at this candle. Look at that weekly candle. And so I just simply don't believe this structure would be presenting itself as it is if Bitcoin was in some type of local distribution. This tells me that Bitcoin is has been in a short-term consolidation. And so when Mara has traditionally, and just because this has happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future, when it's entered this overbought territory, what's typically happened? Let's look. I don't know. Let's look. So it entered overbought the week of July 2020. It went from 125 and reached the top of 524 in 2 weeks. Okay. Do I expect it to 4x in 2 weeks? No, absolutely not. What happened in November of 2020 when it first got into overbought? It's the bottom end of their candle range with 356. And within 1, 2, 3, let's just look at its wave 3 top. So from that November to January, it went from 356 to 2843 prior to its 4 correction. Okay, that's an end of 2. What happened here? This happened in a corrective wave, in my opinion. Mara went from a low end weekly 52.27 to the following week 83.06, but that started its correction down. So there's one where, yeah, maybe it looked like this was a start of something, but this was a corrective wave, in my opinion. And so that's, that's two out of 3 that led to, positive forward returns. I mean, this led to positive forward returns, but that was short-lived and it made a major reversal. Okay, so that's to note there. And then the third time, or the fourth time we entered this RSI overbought area is where we are right now. Okay. Now, what lens am I looking at this through? I'm looking at this through the lens of the macro BTC chart. And what is the macro BTC chart telling me? What impulse were we in here on BTC? What impulse were we in here? Okay, we were in the wave 3 impulse here, and we were in the correction starting 4 correction here. Okay, And so where do I believe we are right now? You all know we just went through that. I believe we're in BTC fifth impulse. And so this price action is very, very closely mimicking early stage impulsive behavior for Mara. Okay. All right. Next is Mara BTC for a little bit more confluence. Mara BTC, this is like a cheat code. Again, I say these things with confidence because I'm really confident and absolutely love what I'm saying. But again, doesn't guarantee because something, the way that I've mapped it out is the way that it's going to come to fruition in the future, or the way that it's happened before is the way it's going to happen in the past. So I just want to lay that out there. This is Mara denominated in BTC, folks. Okay. And if we go back to the COVID lows, so where corrective 2 on BTC's high time frame chart started its third impulse, what did Mara do against Bitcoin? It made a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wave move against Bitcoin. So massive outperformance against Bitcoin. This is Mara measured divided by Bitcoin. What did it do when it exited its 4 correction and went through its initiation of the fifth impulse recently? Let's take a look. December of last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-wave move outperformance to the upside. Okay. Then what happened? Then we saw a massive correction back in August of 2020, a 3-wave ABC, boom. Okay. What did we see recently? And what have I've been getting a lot of tweets about, not as much recently, but early, October, September. Why is Bitcoin starting to go up and Mara's lagging, or Riot's lagging? Well, we're seeing the same type of structure. Let me zoom in now because this is important. We're seeing the same type of A, B, C correction, but that ended, folks. That correction ended. And so what we have now is very similar to what we saw as Mara 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 came outperformance. And I believe we are in the midst of that going on right now. So out of November, we had a 1, 2, and now we're in the midst of this 3, 4, 5, which is why you're seeing this strength. Mara was up 2% on Friday and Bitcoin was down. Mara was up on the week and Bitcoin was down. How do you explain that? Well, the ratio explains it. I don't know any other way to explain it, but what the ratio is telling us. Okay, next, Riot. Riot count. The Riot's been lagging Mara. I've gotten a lot of questions about what's better. I don't know what's better. I'm not I could claim clout by saying, oh, Mara is better because of its how many Bitcoin it's going to mine this month per hash rate. I don't know truly about the difference between that metric, Riot's metric, fundamentals, debt on their balance sheet, all that other important stuff that would allow you to accurately value these miners. And even if you came to an appropriate valuation, is that going to reflect in the stock price? Well, Mara's got a way more short interest. So let's say Riot was a better fundamental miner, but Mara has more short interest. That could mean different things for the price. So I use Mara more because for me it's a cleaner Elliott wave count. But make no mistake, I believe these miners are all set up in the same way. So if I'm looking at this is a daily chart of Riot on going all the way back to 2022. I believe we're in the minor third of our major 3 impulse, and that's just that's a wonderful place to be if in fact that's what ends up coming to fruition. So let me zoom in a little bit more on this chart, and we just have this beautiful kind of megaphone type of broadening wedge consolidation at highs, mind you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, just kind of consolidating up against those highs. And so this to me screams, you know, whether it happens next week, we gap up or we get a little flush down, up, I don't know. But it just screams to me acceleration to the upside, acceleration to the upside. And my target on Riot, sometime within the next 6 months, wave 3 targets around 120, wave 5 targets around $300. I realize it's very aggressive and I could be wrong, but that's just the way that I'm interpreting the price structure. Now let's look at Riot against BTC, because that's important as well. And I'm seeing the same, very similar structure as I saw as I presented with Mara. So not a lot of difference here, right? We have coming out of the COVID lows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave movements, sub 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into this final third impulse. Same kind of thing going on right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave movements, A, B, C correction, pivoted in November. And since November, it's been outperforming Bitcoin. Since November 16th, Riot has been outperforming Bitcoin. And if we zoom in, we just have a bullish looking structure, right? We've got, you know, the macro higher lows, higher lows, higher lows on a low time frame. You know, we got like this little inverse head and shoulders it's working on, right? And we've got a I love this the right shoulder, because it's consolidating at the highs, and that to me is just bullish. And we've got it's out of the cloud. The Riot BTC pair is out of the cloud, which is also bullish. So this to me just screams expansion is next. I could be wrong, but that's not the way that I'm reading it. Next, MicroStrategy, again, this is one of the more bullish charts in all of traditional finance, along with the charts I just presented to you. This count is coming to fruition. It's taking a little bit longer, just like Bitcoin has been for me, right? If for those who've been following me for a while, I had seen these moves coming a little bit sooner, but that's the market, and I'm not as concerned with the timing as I am with the direction and being a participant in that direction. And so on a weekly time frame, MicroStrategy is again just showing me very bullish signs. We're still in overbought on the RSI. We're consolidating over right above that, right at that 69.70 level, which me just screams continuation to the upside is imminent. And if I zoom in on this structure on a weekly time frame, we see just a beautiful 1, 2, 3, 4 week consolidation breakout, and I just think this is a pause. I could be wrong. The next target for me for MicroStrategy is a $2,000 range of this third impulse, sometime in the month of January, and then correction, and then final target in the $3,200 range sometime prior to the halvening. So I hope this was helpful, folks. I can't express to you how excited I am for all of you that are participating in what's going on. And for those of you that have been following me, I really do appreciate it. I try to reply to as many of the comments as I can. And that's it. We'll keep doing these. Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll talk soon.